Well, it's around that time right here on KAZ Radio, where we have one of the most hottest shows every other Saturday at 11:30. None other than my friend and yours, Minister T.C. Thomas. But wait, that's not T.C. We have his friend, Michael Stitts, standing in. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great. Welcome to Chop It Up. As Larry said, I am Michael Stitts, and I am sitting in for Minister T.C. Thomas. Thank you so much for having me today. And I brought along a few friends with me. To my right is Donald Boggs. Don, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Donald Boggs. Nice to be here. Thanks, Minister TC. Happy Memorial Day to everybody. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Don, you want to open us up in prayer so that we can get started?
Absolutely, absolutely. If you're out there, please bow your heads with us. Heavenly Father, we ask that you complete the work that you've begun in each of us. Let us see as you see and do as you say. Amen.
Amen. All right. So let's get right into it. You know, the topic today, it's a lot of things going on in the news. And I thought what would be interesting is if we could talk about the decision that the NFL has made in regards to players kneeling during the national anthem. Now, this whole thing started from a Kappa. Don is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha
as
fraternity.
As is Minister T.C. A Phi.
And I am a member, as you can see, of Omega Psi Phi fraternity.
Don't hold it
and Colin Kaepernick is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. So we're definitely connected through the Greek society, right?
I love the connectivity.
And then, so he gets credit for starting this movement where he took a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness about police brutality and especially against people of color.
Right.
And from there, it went to he being kind of blackballed from the NFL.
Blackballed.
No team would or whiteballed, whatever you want to call it. No team would actually even give him a shot.
Right.
And then they changed the narrative to say that he was protesting against the flag and against the national anthem. So they changed the whole narrative. They interviewed him several times. He's been very clear on what he was kneeling for, but the narrative has never changed back to the original reason. So now fast forward to this year, the NFL has taken the stance that if you want to protest, you have to stay in the locker room, and during the national anthem, it's required that you stand.
Right.
So let's talk about that. What's your feelings on that? And
my feelings are really twofold, Mike. On the one hand, I think that we should all be able to peacefully protest. That's what our First Amendment rights stand for. That's what people, when you look at Memorial Day, have fought and died for our First Amendment rights and our rights in general. As it pertains to the NFL, with this decision that was just made by Goodell, and two things. On the one hand, like I said, it's twofold. On the one hand, they didn't even consult the players. So they sort of got blindsided there. You know how we talk offline about the NFL is really not for long.
Right.
It's really not for long. With that being said, they took them they didn't even consult them, and like you said, they really skewed the message of Colin Kaepernick was all about. It's not about the flag, it's about police brutality. And if you really want to take it a step further, Mike, it's not even about, you see shirts that say Black Lives Matter, really all lives matter, but when we talk about police brutality, what about the player just recently by the Milwaukee Bucks who was just tased? Sterling Brown. So
right.
it hasn't stopped.
Right.
It hasn't stopped. But so I disagree with the protest. I mean, disagree with what the NFL did. And I want to see how it plays out amongst the players, and I want to see if there's going to be a backlash by the NFLPA as well.
Yeah, and I believe I heard that the NFLPA is weighing their options as far as what they can do to go against that. My big issue is that number one, they changed the narrative of the whole protest. Because certain people were not comfortable with them kneeling. Whoever they may be. He originally he sat down, and was approached by a member of the armed forces. And he said, sitting down is kind of disrespectful to the flag,
Right.
During the national anthem. And Colin Kaepernick, having family members in the service, said, "Oh, okay, I
understand.
I never knew, and here, why don't I do this?"
Right.
And Kneel has never been considered disrespect.
Come on.
We kneel in church.
We kneel and pray.
Yeah, right.
There's pews in the church where
So
you can't kneel.
it's out of reverence
Yes.
that you kneel.
And respect. Exactly. Reverence and
And
respect,
so,
absolutely.
and the service member agreed with him that kneeling would be a much better option than sitting. That's never talked about.
Never come into play.
My other problem is that this narrative of he's protesting the flag, it's not about the flag. It's about bringing awareness about police brutality against people of color.
Now I want to ask you that.
Especially my black and brown people.
Right. Now let me ask you that. In that same vein, again, we were talking offline, and the bottom line to me is also, since Kaepernick, this is almost 2 years in, because he's been blackballed from the NFL. This is almost 2 years in.
It is 2 years now.
It's 2 years in. With that being said, is police brutality in America subsiding? Is it increasing? Where do you stand on that?
It's definitely not subsiding. I think that police brutality has been prevalent for decades, centuries, however long it's been in existence.
Just on blast now.
Yeah. Now, I want to be very clear, though. The majority of police officers are good and have the best intentions and believe in the protect and serve.
At the end, I agree.
However, there are some bad apples.
Right.
Some bad actors.
Right.
And the thing that really bothers me is that everybody knows there are some bad actors.
Right.
But when those bad actors appear, no one wants to talk about them. Tell on them.
Right.
Right. It's that blue wall of blue code or blue badge of silence, whatever they call it. So, I have a problem with that. But all we have to do is address the bad actors.
Right.
We're not saying the whole police department is out to get us.
Right.
you
Exactly.
know? But there's definitely been a rise, and I think with the invention of the cell phone and cameras, that you're getting a lot more of it on a day-to-day basis because of that.
I think it's very rare, whether it's the NFL. A lot of times sports imitates life. Life can imitate sports.
Right.
So when you look at it from that kind of standpoint, from my standpoint, if there's a camera there, it really, to me, the narrative hasn't changed. There's more awareness. You look at the NFL right now. Did the NFL owners consult the players? No. We've marched. We've consulted. We've seen our brethren. And I'm not, like you said, it's not all of the police.
Right.
By and large, they do protect and serve. Glad they're out there. I'm an 18-year military veteran. I'm right there with you. Okay. With that being said, I'm going to tell you there is. I don't feel that. Okay, let's go back to Starbucks. Not just the NFL. Two brothers walk into Starbucks.
And have a seat.
And have a seat, and they're going to jail. Then you go, now let's flip the narrative again, and there's another brother in Tennessee who saves people at the Waffle House. Okay? All I'm trying to say is that all of these things that I mentioned, particularly the first two, the narrative hasn't changed. We're still being profiled. We're still being targeted, if you will,
right.
And that's how. And I think that narrative hasn't changed yet. And I don't. And now I think that you look at the public perception is that, hey, it's not about police brutality, Colin Kaepernick. You're disrespecting the flag.
Right. And I the other thing is I think that the president of the United States has made it easier for people who kind of have the same views as he does to voice freely their opinions. So. And I, again, he weighed in last year on the NFL with when more players joined the take a knee stance. Right. He, called them SOBs and they should be thrown out of here. Right. Yeah. And so maybe that's what pushed these owners and the commissioner to making a decision on what to do with the protests. But I think if you really take a look at it, and I don't care. All right, so he's protesting police brutality. What if you're protesting something else?
Yeah.
You don't get the opportunity to do that.
Right, you don't.
And I get the argument this is a corporation. I do get that argument, and they can set their own rules. But at the same time, you know, you want them to stand up for civil action, and then when they do, you shut them down.
It's the only sport that has their own day of the week, and it does happen to be a Sunday.
2 days.
2 days. Saturday
Don't forget
and
about
Thursday,
Monday
Monday, Sunday and Monday.
Right.
So, Sunday is the holiest day of the week. Let's keep it real.
Right.
And stand up for police brutality. I mean, it goes back to me, it goes back to we need to continually connect. It all comes down to connectivity when it comes to it. If you include everybody in and everybody has a say-so and everybody agrees, then it's not going to be a problem. It's not going to be a problem.
So tell me more about this connectivity. What do you mean by that?
I think that for example, with the NFL, they didn't consult the players. Okay? Excuse me if I'm wrong, but the players make the money, so the owners can make the money to pay the players. So if you don't consult the players, that's not a good thing. That's like telling your employees, you're going to work another 16 hours, but I'm only going to pay you for 8.
Yeah, you know, when you say connectivity, you know, I think that there is a disconnect.
Major disconnect.
You have the owners who, you know, sit in their sky labs and watch the game and make all the money. Then you have the players who are actually performing. And then you have the fans.
Right.
You know, and then within that group, the fan group, you have some people who were for, you know, him protesting, and some that were against. So you take all these different groups, and there's a disconnect between them all.
And that's what I was leading up to, a major disconnect.
Yeah, so.
And I mean, and not only that, you sort of feel that as a player, and you listen to some of these NFL players, I forget the one player, I want to say his name is Ryan Smith. But he had a very cogent remark on ESPN the other day where he was saying, you know, not only did they consult us, but, you know, at the end of the day, I want to protest, but I don't want to lose my salary. I don't want to be fined. You feel me? I don't want to be fined by that. But I want to protest it. So then they took the narrative a step further, and this is where the connectivity sort of starts to happen. Before he said, well, look, if we do like the Cowboys did that one game where they kneeled down in solidarity, Jerry Jones did before the national anthem, and then when the national anthem was played, they stood up. So now let me ask you this: you're an NFL player; they do feel disconnected. If you were playing, what would you do?
You know, I believe in the Constitution. You know, I'm if I feel like there is something going on, because here's the deal. A lot of these players come from inner cities.
Absolutely.
You know, they come from the Clevelands, the Chicagos, the Detroits, the Miamis of the world, right?
Yep.
And a lot of these inner cities, these actions are going on. You know, you have police brutality, you have a lot of crime, you have, you know, a myriad of issues within our communities.
Absolutely.
And you're telling them as an owner of that team that your issues don't matter.
Exactly.
It's what we want and what you want, we don't care about.
That's right.
And so I have a problem with that.
So do I.
You know, I think that we need more of the players in all the sports to speak out when they see something that's wrong.
Do you think these professional sports organizations, and let's take it a step further, any professional organization that's out front in the public eye, do you think they have a responsibility to sort of to take that, you know, with great power comes great responsibility? Do you think that the NFL is behind the times on this?
I think that it just depends what the protest is. I think that if it's something that suits their agenda, then they're fine with it, and you wouldn't hear all of the backlash.
Right.
But if it's something that is cutting edge, then you're gonna get what we got now with this flag, or as they call it, flag protest.
Yeah.
But
flag protest. Ain't this something?
And it's never ever been about the flags.
Ever.
It's always
That's why the
been
police
about
brutality is still going on. So we can
Right.
still do this police brutality. And we're going to make it about the flag.
Right. And
It's like,
fittingly
look at
enough,
this hand while I hide the one behind my back.
right?
You know?
And fittingly enough, as you said, that, you know, they came out with this decision, and then either the day before or the next day, Sterling Brown from the Milwaukee Bucks is tased.
3 times. 3 times, not once, not so. And he was very peaceful.
Right.
You know, and the same. So we're still being profiled like that. I just think that bigger organizations, particularly in the NFL, you don't see that so much in the NBA. I mean, but the NFL, man, they're this is a football country. Let's keep it real.
Yeah.
It's a football country. Every NBA stadium you see, you can fit that twice into an NFL stadium.
Well, you know, I said this before that. You know, the Cavs have recently, in the last 4 years,
Go Cavs, by the way,
won a championship.
Yeah.
Shout out to LeBron and
Cleveland.
his
This is for
last
you.
night. But you know, if the Browns make the playoffs, if they go 10-6 and don't make the playoffs, Cleveland becomes an NFL town again.
Again, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. That's how.
Because every Sunday, down at that stadium, and trust me, I had season tickets for 45 years.
Say that again.
45 years I was a season ticket holder for the Browns.
Give that man a round of applause.
Before they
out there
went
in
on
TV
16,
land.
I gave up my seat, thank God. But
Thank God, thank you, Lord. Yep.
but I see the people. They're down there 7 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
And they're leaving at 6 p.m. in the evening.
Yeah.
And they're tailgating and they're drinking and they're going to the game and that stadium is full. Win, lose, or draw, that stadium is full.
Hot or cold, let's go there.
So if they start winning,
it's a wrap.
this city, I mean, I remember when they got into the playoffs in the 80s and they had the statues around town wrapped up in brown and orange. With scarves and hats and stuff like that.
Yeah. Moses Cleveland had a scarf and hat on.
So this is a Cleveland. Cleveland is definitely a football town.
Absolutely. It is such a, to me, going back to the disconnect thing and the connectivity, at the end of the day, you know, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
That's what we're put on this earth to do, is to stay connected. We're all connected right now on this planet at any given time.
So how do we bring that connection? How do we get back connected? Because right now it's a disconnect.
No doubt about it.
And I think it's a disconnect between all the different groups. You know, so you have the fans that believe in that protest, the fans that don't want to see that on Sunday.
Right.
You have the owners who just want to. The money is the bottom line,
Right.
and then you have the players who come from some of these communities where the police brutality is going on, and so they have strong emotions and feelings towards that. So how do we bring all these groups together and get them all connected?
I think that you personally just answered your own question. Bring them to the table. You have to bring them all to the table, and you also have to take your feelings aside, because obviously when you're the NFL, you're not just thinking about your wants and needs, you're thinking about your brand. You're thinking about
Absolutely.
little kids coming up that want to be part of this. You're thinking about, it's much deeper. Being a football player is ingrained in you from the time you're a kid. So, you know, it's getting to the point now where you got this concussion protocol stuff. You got all this other things going on. You got to bring everybody to the table when it pertains to this particular issue and actually listen to them.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you really listen to them, we wouldn't even be having this conversation about the flag, because it's not about the flag.
Right.
It's about police brutality.
Right.
So obviously they're not listening.
Right.
You got 2 of these and 1 of these.
And let's be clear, police brutality doesn't just happen to black and brown people.
No.
You know, it happens to all races, you know, so there are bad actors within the police department.
No doubt about it. We
So
all
no
know
doubt.
that. There's no doubt about it.
I don't care what, even if you look at the NFL, you have some bad actors
Yeah.
in the NFL.
Yeah.
You know, both on the field
Yeah.
and off the field. You know,
So when they come to the table, Mike, we get them at the table.
Okay.
Let's play pro and con like we used to do on our show. I'm going to be the NFL owners, and you're the NFL players. Okay. Let's start. Listen, you guys are going to have to, if you can do your protest. If you want to kneel, you can't kneel. For number 1, okay. We let y'all kneel for the last 2 years, but you can't kneel again. And if you do, you're going to have to kneel in the locker room. Nobody can see you. And if you do that, we're going to fine you. If you don't, you accept that. Matter of fact, we don't care whether you accept it or not. Those are the rules.
No, that's unacceptable.
Well, we just said it.
Well, I'm sorry, but you're telling me that if I want to speak out against something that's happening in the community, that I can't, because there are no cameras in the locker room.
Right.
So who's going to see it? What is you're taking the whole platform away. So I mean, the reason for the protest is not that we were protesting the flag. And I'll say this again, it's not that we're protesting the flag.
Hang on, I got to take a call. Yeah, that's how they're doing. They're not listening.
Okay, so then in order to bring,
how do we bridge that?
So
that's what's happening. How do we do that?
So you can bring all these people together,
right?
But you have to actually have people listen to what the other person is saying.
Exactly, because if they listen, Mike, who would not want to change police brutality?
Or,
who would not
or
want to
any
stop
other
that?
thing.
Or any
I mean,
other
there's
thing.
a myriad
Right
of
is
issues.
right. Right is right.
You know, we do. We wear pink for breast cancer. You know, we do purple for some other cause. You know,
We got the March of Dimes. We got all kind of stuff.
All kind of stuff. And when it fits their agenda, or in fact, let's keep it real. The whole national anthem flag thing in the NFL came about because it was making money for the NFL.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
So that's the reason that.
Yeah.
And before that, the team stayed in the locker room anyway.
Right, exactly. They sure did. They sure did.
So,
And they would come out with their own little thing, and the cheerleaders on the side, and come out to smoke and mirrors and all that.
Unless you're in Cleveland.
Unless you're, yeah. We don't have cheerleaders in Cleveland. Come on, Browns. Maybe it'll be much better. I guess it's too cold to have. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that all of them coming to the table is a start. But I do think that it's almost like a parent to a child.
Yeah.
Do as I say, and that's it. So whenever you say, look, this is the way that it is, and you have no say-so, that really widens the gap.
And the other thing I think that needs to happen is that, we're a lot of times we look at, as human beings, we focus in on the differences.
Absolutely.
You're black, I'm white, or you're black, I'm white, you're fat, I'm skinny, you got long hair, you got short hair, good hair, bad hair.
Exactly.
It's always the differences that we focus in on.
As opposed to the connections.
Or as opposed to the similarities.
Right.
I mean, we are all spiritual beings.
There's no doubt about it.
So if we look at each other as spiritual beings, we can get past all the differences.
Right.
And find a common purpose to
and as I said
with.
in the opening prayer, that's my favorite prayer. It's very short, concise, and succinct. Complete the work that you've begun in each of us, and let us see as you see and do as you say. Right. And that's from a spiritual standpoint, and that's a spiritual standpoint that is within all of us.
Right.
I mean, it fights. If you really think about it, every fiber of your being fights that type of stuff, and yet it still proceeds. It's amazing to me that that little voice inside each of us doesn't want to just come out and galvanize,
right?
And it's amazing to me because of that. But
it's similar to I heard a story once of a guy is driving down the highway, and the car in front of him is everybody's flying doing 65, 70 miles an hour, and the guy in front of him is doing 40.
Okay.
And he's blowing a horn and doing all the
right.
yelling and screaming and throwing up hand gestures.
Right.
And they took it out of the person who was driving behind the car driving slow.
From that
they
perspective.
took the vision out of his eyes and put it in the driver of the slow car's eyes.
Okay.
And there was an elderly couple. They were celebrating their 75th birthday or wedding anniversary. And they were just enjoying the day, driving along, having a good conversation.
Nice, yeah.
And then they took the perspective from their eyes and put it in God's eyes and saw him looking down on the whole scene.
Nice.
And so, a lot of times if we just change our perspective.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
The whole thing, your whole thinking changes.
Yes, you have to flip it. You have to flip it. You really do. And you can't really and that's one thing, that's a great point, Mike, because people have blinders on in a lot of ways. This particular thing with the NFL, it's blinders on.
Right.
My way or the highway, as opposed to making it all inclusive.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, everybody's going to be happy if they have a say. We can agree to disagree,
Absolutely.
but we have to at least get them to the table to see what we're both thinking.
Right.
You don't make my decisions for me, I don't make them for you. Let's keep it real. The NFL owners make their money off the players.
Right.
Period.
Right.
There's nothing to field without the players.
Yeah, and now, and so I think this connectivity has to happen, and I think that you have to have open dialogue between all the groups, including the fans.
No doubt.
Because the fans, if they're not buying the tickets, none of this happens.
None of it happens. The fans are the key ingredient.
So maybe a town hall. I remember when I first moved back to Cleveland, the first thing I did on my agenda was to get my season tickets back.
Right.
And so it was during the time where they had already moved to Baltimore.
Okay.
They said they were getting the team back, but they hadn't named the owner or.
Right.
So I went. I called them around and said I want my tickets back and I want to sit with my buddy who I went to the game with before.
Right.
And they said, well, we can't. We don't have an owner. So then about a month later, they invited me to this. It was kind of like a town hall.
Okay.
It was a focus group.
Okay.
And I drove out to Berea, and we went into a conference room, and we talked about all the different experiences of fans.
Right.
And what drove our decision making. And afterwards, he came in and said, okay, we got two tickets for you.
Oh, wow.
So, and he put me back with my buddy.
Okay.
But I think that has to happen. I think
doubt.
you have to have something like a focus group led by an impartial party.
Right.
And you hear all sides and their feelings and their opinions and
Yeah.
and
Before you
then-
make a decision.
right, before you make an informed decision.
So now, what have they done? All that is great. All that is great. But what has the NFL done in that vein? They've already made their decision that that's not going to happen.
Well, and maybe they didn't think it all the way through and just went.
So what should the NFLPA do
They went
to make it
hastily into that good night. You know, I don't know.
right. Miles to go before they sleep
Right,
as well.
right.
What do you think is going to come from this with the NFLPA?
Well,
as a players union, they're saying they're going to look at everything and then they're going to come back with it. What do you think their
think
response should
that
be?
you know, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm sure they'll have their lawyers look through the decision and see if it legally holds weight, and if it doesn't, then I guess they could probably take action against it, some type of action against it.
One of my coworkers asked me, had Donald this is about a year or so ago, Donald, do you stand for the national anthem when you're at games? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to sit up and tell you 100% every single time I have, with the exception, but I rethought it in the last year or two. Haven't been to that many games to answer. So maybe the next game, what are you going to do at the next game?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was a season ticket holder, there were times I did not sit. I did not stand.
Yes, yeah.
And in fact, I remember quite clearly one time, and this is before Kaepernick and all that, because there were certain things that I didn't agree with, and the flag is supposed to be for all people,
right.
and I didn't think that the flag covered all people,
right?
And
there's been times that I've sat as well, and I don't think it makes a difference to you. Really?
No, I don't, but I do remember another fan yelling at me for not standing.
Yeah. That's amazing. But see, that's the whole thing. I wonder
from a distance.
Of course, we're big guys, right? We're big guys, so you're not gonna. You're gonna have to. You got to break. They don't want to come in there kitchen. It's hot in there.
Yeah. So we, I think that there's definitely going to be more discussion about this.
Absolutely,
decision.
as well it should be.
And we'll see what happens. Hopefully they make the right decisions.
Yeah, we're praying for you, NFL. At the end of the day, let's all stay connected and remember that we all are open and responsible for each other.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's all we got.
Close us out in prayer, and we'll say our goodbyes before you do. So again, I'm Michael Stitts, and I just want to thank you, Minister TC. I call you Tim Thomas.
I call you Alpha, brother.
For inviting us on, sitting in for you, brother.
Absolutely.
We love you. Hope everything is all well with you.
Right.
And we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. All right.
Don, thank you so much for coming on with me.
My pleasure.
And if you could close us out in prayer.
Okay. I'd like to, before I do that, I want to say a heartfelt thank you and to all of our fallen brothers and sisters who have served us in all of what's the First World War, the Second, and all the wars overseas. You are without,
and all the policemen that are out there serving,
and that are out there as well,
and the EMSs and all of them.
But as we go into Memorial Day, this is what Memorial Day is all about: is to have them remember that the benefits, the liberties, the rights that we take sort of for granted from time to time, whether it be this particular NFL thing as well. These people died and sacrificed for us to be right here to this day. Let's not ever forget them. And that's what Memorial Day is all about. So happy Memorial Day to everybody. Go put a flag on somebody's grave, look up and say a pledge of allegiance, and stand for the national anthem. It's all about the soldiers today. You know what I mean? It's all about them in Memorial Day. So thanks for that. Now I'll say a quick prayer. Yeah, you ready? Heavenly Father, thank you for having us come together today. I wanted to say one more thing. I want everybody to work on being connected. At the end of the day, we are all connected. Let's find, like Mike said earlier, let's find our similarities. We have more similarities than differences. Let us get closer to each other, and let us get closer to you, Lord. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. Amen.
Just remember to take all your problems to God. He's the one with all the answers.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on Chop It Up.
Chopping it
We'll
up.
see you in a couple of weeks, and Minister T.C. Thomas will be back with you.
All right, Tim, we can't wait to see you,
God
man.
bless everyone.
Thanks.
Have a safe
God bless
weekend.
everybody.